It may not seem like it straight away, but we're about to learn one of the most important topics in Ruby, and that is arrays. Think about our everyday lives in the real world. We keep lists for everything. Shopping lists, TV guide, just name it. Programming is no different. In fact, programming languages often try to represent the real world. An array is one of those representations. It's a fundamental topic in programming and it's super useful. Ruby's implementation is a little different to some other languages, so if you have done some programming before, make sure you pay attention. An array is just a collection of values. So we can define some arrays here as arrays of numbers. So we could define just the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. We could define the odds 1, 3, 5, or the evens 2, 4, 6. When we define an array, we're putting our objects inside the square brackets and separating them by commas. Arrays can also contain strings. In fact, strings and arrays are so commonly used in Ruby, there's a shortcut for it. We use the %W modifier followed by a bracket and some strings. It means we don't have to use the square brackets and we don't have to bother with the commas. But note, you can't use this shortcut for any strings that contain a space because we're using the space to separate the strings in our array. If you have strings with spaces, you'll need to go back to the square bracket notation. One of the key differences between Ruby arrays and arrays in other languages is that Ruby can have mixed types. We can have integers and strings and any other kind of object all inside the same array. To access an element in an array, we use the square bracket operator in much the same way that we access characters in strings. And once again, arrays are cardinally indexed. That means we start counting from 0. So the first element in the array is actually the 0th element. ARR0 will return cat. And once again, much like strings, arrays can be accessed in many ways. We can use the same sorts of notation as we did for strings. In fact, you may notice a lot of parallels here. Both arrays and strings behave as enumerable objects. That means they can be accessed largely in the same way. When we learn about inheritance later in the course, we'll see how both arrays and strings actually inherit from the enumerable type. It's possible, once we have created an array, to add more elements to it. To do this, we can use the less than operator. But note that when we're using the less than operator, also known as the append operator, we're actually mutating the array. Where there is an add, there is of course a delete. We can delete methods from our array by using the delete method and passing it an argument that is the element we actually want to delete. But there are other ways to delete elements from an array. For example, we can delete an element at an index. So in this case, we want to delete the element that is at the 0th index. In other words, we're removing the element at the front of the array. For this exercise, I'd like you to take the array of characters. The characters inside the array are simply A, B, C, C again, D, E, and F. I'd like you to retrieve the third element, counting from 1, retrieve the first 2 elements of the array, then retrieve the last element of the array, then delete the duplicate C character, and finally add the character G to the end of the array. Good luck with the exercise, and we'll go through a solution in the next video.